Okay, good evening. Welcome to class number 9. I have over here the recap of the inventory. And before I go on to do the new transactions for this class, I'm going to review the 7 and 8 with some of the brackets. I think we did that already, but I'm going to go over it one more time quickly. So for those who are still going in QuickBooks and have not entered the transactions. So obviously step number 1 was to enable the inventory tracking and edit preferences inventory and make sure the box was checked. The same thing will be if you, this software is going to expire, you're going to have a new software and you don't have inventory enabled yet in it, you're going to have to go through this step. You're going to have to enable inventory tracking, and then you're going to have to by going to edit preferences and inventory, it's items in inventory, and you'll click the checkbox. If you're starting inventory from scratch, so you have to create items that will be in the inventory. You have to create the first item was TLS, which was Tikkun Shavuos. As I recalled, I said we have to add the 30 TLS to opening balance. It was when you create the item TLS. So you're going to put in the income account. The income account was sales. And I have to put in the income account where it's going to track it, differentiate between service revenue and merchandising revenue. Then you have to put in the cost. What did the item cost us? The item cost $2. Now in this case, it could be one of several factors. Either we are transferring from a paper-based or unorganized tracking method to a digitized tracking method. So we go into our back storage room, we find our last box of 30 TLS. So right now, today, we are not going to have an expense to buy it, but the cost is what the value of the item is. In this case, the way I wrote over here, equity goes up $60. It's another $60 we did not realize we had. We know we have the bank. We know we have all other assets, and we found the box. We didn't go out and buy it now. That's why all we're doing is we're adding it to our opening balance. So it existed within the company, just not on paper. And now by putting it in the open balance, the equity is going to go up to 30 TLS at a cost of $2. Our equity goes up. Equity is what we have either invested in the company or what the company has kept from previous years. So we might not have invested it actually today, but theoretically the money that we made last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we could have taken it out, or we leave it in the company, and that's the value that we have after we pay off our liabilities. Again, the sales price was $10. So whenever we're going to make a sale of one TLS, one Tikkun Shavuos, so the income line will be the $10 sale. The cost, which we recognize as the expense, is $2. And then the resulting profit, gross profit, will be $8 on that sale. For example, we went over to Rabbi Cohen. Rabbi Cohen came and bought 10 TLS. So the sales receipt, as we said over here, was $100 because he's buying 10 books times $10 is $100. The cost of goods is 10 times $2, and the profit will be $80. As we said, the debits and credits, if you would go into it, is not really just $100. The total is really $120. It's the $100 debit to cash or to bank because he's paying us $100. And then there's a debit of an expense, $20. And since there has to be a matching entry on the credit side, so we understand that revenue goes up by $100 and inventory, which was our previous asset, gets credited. We remove $20 out of the inventory. Okay. So this is what happened. We had 30, and we sold 10. What is our running balance? Our running inventory on hand today will be 20 pieces left before we purchase another 50 from a Karas Farm, which will bring it to 70. And as we said before, we have to make sure that before we make a sale, we put in the number in on hand, because if we don't put the number on hand, then the following sales and purchases will be like, we won't be able to edit that field anymore. There is a way to do it. We're not going to do it today. We'll do it adjusting entries maybe next week. Right now, we want to finish off the basic inventory and get basic payroll, and then we can start going to a more immediate advanced features of QuickBooks. So we have a purchase from Makara Safarim for 50 TLS. What would that be if we buy 50 TLS? So, like I said, before we had 20 left over from the books, we have 70 books. But now we're going to have also a $100 liability that we have to pay Makara Safarim, because we bought 50 TLS at a cost of $2 a book. Before we go further, there was a suggestion that was raised that instead of me demonstrating the steps, and that everyone should be doing it as we speak. I am not really so keen on that idea, because I think people who don't know what QuickBooks is supposed to look like is not going to understand the steps through what I'm saying. But if someone at this point is holding at this stage and wants to listen to what I'm saying and enter these things, they could go right ahead and we could see how it works for them. So what happened if we purchased from Makara Safarim 50 TLS? We went and we sold 25 to the Gabay of Shemer Shabbos. And here I said, you have to make sure that we're entering the invoice at $8.50. Even though generally, automatically, the sales price would be $10, but you can customize the price just by writing over the default price. You can make it higher, you can make it lower. In this case, because he's buying 25, we made it $8.50. For those that corrected it, hopefully the P&L and the balance sheet will be matching what we sent out in the email. Along with the 25 TLS, the Gabay Shemer Das also had 5 HK. It was 5 housekeeping. Automatically, it's billed $20 a piece. That was another $100. There was 7 general consulting. That was another $700 altogether. He ended up with an invoice of $1,012.50. That's what should have been his account receivable. At this point, I totaled. This is the most revised version. You might have gotten the previous version. The total sales as of this point in merchandise is, again, total sales is 1,112. It's 1,012 from the Gabay, and $100 from Rabbi Cohen. This is the additional income that we add in 525. So if you would make a P&L out of 524 and make a P&L report on 525, you would see an increase of 1,112. This is not to be confused with the actual revenue generated by the merchandise, because the merchandise is only 25 times 850 and only the $100. So it's only several $100. It's not this $1,000 that we have here. That was the summary of the first inventory class, where we introduced the first item of TLS. We had some on hand. We purchased some more and we sold some. Then we had a second class. We created a new item called Megillus MR, which is Megillus Rus. That was in the sales account. The cost was $1. So we did not and the sales price was $3. We said do not add to on hand because we did not have any on hand. We had to go out and buy. And we did this in 2 stages. We received, first of all, 100 MR, and I'm going to go show you now what we did in the new share. We have when we go to a vendor, there are 2 things we could do, or 3 things we could do. We could first create a purchase order, which is just, we're asking someone to sell us something. It's a purchase order, or called PO. There is no expense related to this. It's just asking for an order. Then we could do a combined entry, which is receive an item and enter a bill. So at the same time, we're going to have new inventory because we received items. At the same time, we're also going to have a new liability because we're entering a bill, which we have to pay, new accounts payable. Alternatively, we could receive an item, but we don't enter a bill. For example, if someone's telling us he's not exactly sure what the total cost is because he has to add fuel surcharges, or he has different expenses. Maybe it's on consignment. So he's telling you, you sell it for this price, and later on, we're going to finalize what your purchase price is, depending on how many you move. So right now, what you're doing is receiving items, you're increasing inventory, there's no bill yet. Then afterwards, you would enter a bill for those received items. In that case, when you do enter a bill for received items, it's going to change from a regular inventory receipt to a bill, which brings you back to the same result of receiving items and enter bill. So you can either do receive items and enter bill at one time, or you could just receive the items without putting in the bill and subsequently you will enter the bill for received items. I guess usually you don't enter a bill without receiving the item. So that's what doesn't give you that option. Now what we did was we went to one time with the receive item and enter bill. That's how we went to receive item, and we went to, it was according to the paper here, it was the first 100 we took from Machan Yerushalayim. So we created a vendor Machan Yerushalayim. Now that it's in, it's in. Just by typing MA, it shows up. But if you didn't have it, you would type up Machan Yerushalayim, you press tab, and you click add the vendor. We put in the item MR, which was already created in step 1 of class 8. And then we'll press tab, and we'll have the quantity on hand, which the quantity on hand at this point will be 0. In our case, if we go into it, it's going to be a different number because we already made sales, we already received more. If you remember, we sold a total of 152 after we received 200. That's why it's 48 left. But the step that we did was we just entered a bill. So we receive item and enter a bill. And what shows up over here is bill. The second stage we did was we received an item from the car. So we did item MR. We did quantity 100. And this is a little tricky part. That's why I'm reviewing with some people, obviously without mentioning any names. Quantity, we put in 100. And obviously the bill is 100. 100 pieces for $1 is $100. And we saved it. Then we took another 100. I don't recall right now if we did receive item, enter bill, or we just received the item. I believe we just received the item. And we received the item. That calls item receipt. So it shows item receipt and as opposed to bill. When you save it, when you go into the vendor and you go to vendor center, that would show you the difference. If you Machan Yerushalayim, it's bill. Makar Sfarim is item receipt. All right, so that's what we did. We did item receipt for $50. We did not do it because we're doing different variations of entry, because each step is supposed to teach us a separate skill. So the first thing is we did Machan Yerushalayim, which is a bill. And to get the bill, we did receive item and enter bill. And for Machan Yerushalayim, Makar Sfarim, what we did is we would vendor and receive an item. And that's why it's called item receipt, as we show over here. In this case, we did not cost us $1. We put in the same quantity, it was 100. But we said it's going to be 50 cents. So we overrode it for 50 cents. And since we changed the cost by more, but we're not updating the item. We want the regular item to be still at $1. So we press no, and we'll leave it at 50 cents. Now, obviously you can calculate that if we bought 200 pieces, and one is $100 order, one is a $50 order. So the total of $150 for 200 pieces costs us 75 cents. And that is why when we went to lists, and we went to item list, so what did we find over here? We found that right now we have MR 48 pieces left. That's the inventory. That's not what we're looking at. If we go into it, we'll see that our average cost is 75 cents. So someone asked me, well, his average cost is 50 cents. So I replied, and I didn't get a response, but could be that's what happened. It didn't put on a price, so they got 100 pieces for $0. So when you have only the first order, which is $100, and you get another 100 pieces, so you have 200 pieces. So the only way 200 pieces becomes 50 cents average is if the second 100 came for free. Otherwise, there'll be a different amount. Any dollar amount you put in your invoice, it will make an average. We'll take the 200 pieces and make the total of the bills, and that's what'll come up. So as I said, that's the difference between a bill and a receipt. A bill is you're getting the items and you have the packing slip at the same time, so you're putting it in. The receipt is maybe not 100% sure of the price. Maybe you are sure, maybe it's adjustable. You're just receiving the item. There is a cost, but you're not entering a bill yet. Now, clear this out. Now I'm going to show today a step. What we're going to do, we're going to enter a bill against this receipt. So let me X this out. I'm going to do this in today's class, but I'm just review. This item receipt, after we receive a bill against it, it's going to turn into another bill. This bill was originally from TLS that we bought, I believe. That was the first, we bought 50 pieces at $2. So the bill's 100. Here, this is item receipt is for the item receipt is for the MR, 100 pieces at 50 cents is $50. So I hope whoever was looking on the computer or trying to understand can go back and see, did they enter these two entries at the right price? The first 100 at $1 and the second 100 at 50 cents. Then we went to customers. So again, I do it from the icon. Whoever doesn't have this icon bar on the top, I already explained to you, they could go to to view and top icon bar. If I take it off, it disappears. Let's see, or hide icon bar, it disappears. And if I press top, it says hide icon bar, or I want to see the top icon bar. And then I go to customer, and we had over here Mr. Gabay. And for those who recall, this is all extra because all I could have done was to do Control I. Do Control I, automatically will come up invoice. The only difference is it wouldn't say which person, so therefore you have to enter G and you get Mr. Gabay. And we put in over here, actually for 151 MR. So it was MR. Actually, again, 151. We explained the difference between the invoice and a sales receipt. The invoice, you put quantity first. And the sales receipt, quantity is later, as you'll see in the Fiverr's Glick. Put in 151 MR was $3. The total was $453. I'm just going to skip ahead. We went later on and we adjusted his bill to $225 because he was upset. And he saw Mr. Glick come and get him buying one for the same price. So, and his bill was $339.75. Okay, I'm clearing this out because I already have this invoice. So I'm not saving this. Or I could save a zero invoice. It's really the same thing. It's going to do nothing. And then we did a sales receipt, customer sales receipt. Create. The sales receipt. And as I said, this is not going to be, it's going to show up automatically, Mr. Gabe, because I was highlighting him, but I don't want him. I want the other G, which is Glick. And as you see here, that quantity is So for some reason, that's the way they do it. They put quantity towards the right, and you just put the item here. And it was one. It was MR, and the quantity is one. And if you notice the difference between the descriptions that we created, and when you sell it, the MR, it shows up Megillas MR print. Probably should have the MR. Okay, anyway, the point was that we could customize what we sell to the customer. And when we receive from the vendor, it just has Megillas Rus. Just different tweaks that you can do while you're working in QuickBooks. And account receivable, we said at that time, today, if we go to the P&L, it should be 1567.25. Let's see if that's what we have here. Profit and loss. And accounts receivable, and actually accounts receivable is the balance sheet. And we're going to put in, okay, we're not here today, we're going to go minus, we're back from last class. So it's 1567.25, that is the account receivables after taking into account the big bill from Mr. Gabay. So now we have our accounts receivables of 1567.25. I had undeposited funds of $3 because I made a sales receipt if I was click without depositing it, and therefore my bank account is 618. If your bank account shows 621 and doesn't show the line of undeposited funds, it would not have an effect on your assets. The assets will be the same amount because the assets is a total of your bank, accounts receivables, your MR, and everything else. So that was the end of class 8. Let me see, go for a second Q&A if there's anyone had questions here. The mic sound stop? Is that what I heard? Not sure if that. Okay, let's go over the class. So now what we're gonna do is, if you see here in the balance sheet, and then was in balance sheet, we have here inventory asset, MR and TLS. And that's what we're going to accomplish today. We're going to show how you could have general inventory asset, or you want to know what is going on in my inventory by item. What's the value of the Megillas Rus on hand? What's the value of TLS? So I'm going to go through the steps to show you how to do it. The same way you could do it with your cost of goods, and that will be on the P&L sheet. You want to know what is my cost for selling merchandise of services, right? My service sales, it doesn't really cost you much, or actually it does, as we're going to learn in the payroll, when you're paying someone who's billing out hours. But when I'm selling merchandise, I want to know which item is costing me more and what am I making less of. So the first thing I did, we're going now to class 9, the inventory edits. There's 5 steps we're going to do today, and I'm going to do this one by one slowly. Do Control A. Control A gives us the chart of accounts. And for those who recall, you should still have 2 lines. One says inventory asset, and on top of that should say inventory asset with a star. The inventory asset with a star, because we have only 2 items in inventory. We have the Megillas Rus and the TLS. When we entered originally the TLS, it created a new inventory asset with a star. So how do we fix that? We could just right-click and edit. Right-click and edit. And actually, to go back, you right-click and edit the name, not of inventory asset, but the one that says inventory asset, and the one that has a star in front of it. It originally had a star, with inventory asset. We're going to highlight that, and you're going to rename it to TLS. Okay? Again, the inventory asset that has a star in front of it, rename it to TLS, because really everything that's in that account is TLS. And I can make that a sub-account of the inventory asset without a star. So again, you right-click the inventory asset that has a star in front of, asterisk in front of it. You edit it to TLS, and you make it a sub-account of inventory asset. What that really does is it takes everything that was previously inventory asset, which really was TLS, and you can make it a sub of inventory asset. And then the whole value that was in that account is going to be shown by TLS, which would be one step under inventory asset. You don't see TLS or MR. So right, you don't have TLS or MR. You're creating it. What I did was I showed you the end result. Maybe it's more complicated, or it's easier. We'll find out. So today I'm showing you the end result, and I'm trying to tell you how to get there. What we want to have is that on our balance sheet we should have inventory asset, not the total of 126, and that's it. We want to break it down. We have MR of 36, TLS of 90, a total inventory of 126. Like this is someone who has, for example, electronics store, and they have microwaves, and they have air conditioners, and they have different types of refrigerated appliances. They might not want to have one big number of $100,000 of inventory. How do they work with that number? They want to see a breakdown. How much of each type do they have? And it's with a few clicks of a mouse, it's fairly simple to organize it that way. Okay, so again, the reason why I want to make TLS is I want to see a breakdown of what's the value of the tikkun in my inventory, and what is the value of the Megillah Surah. In this case, it's after Shavuos, and we both don't need it till next year. But what happens if I would see a running inventory of several items, and I know that one item which is carrying a large balance will stand out as something that might be obsolete, going out of season. I might say, you know what, I'm going to make a sale on that item and move it quicker so I could get it out, and I won't have to pay storage fees or over the year, something like that. Because when everything is all lumped into one total in inventory, you can't really take stock of what you have, of which item. So if you don't have an inventory asset with the asterisk, that's also good. Okay. So what I did, so we'll go over to the step 2, which is you're going to create a new asset. How do you create a new asset? You go to chart of accounts, and you go Control M, which will give you a new, and you will, no, this is cancel. You change a new asset, the new current asset, because inventory is current. Fixed assets are like buildings that sit around for a long time, they don't move. Current assets are things which, it's an asset, but you can move it, you could sell it, you could turn it into cash. And you'll click other current assets, and you'll give it a name, TLS. Actually, in this case, we said the new current asset of MR. MR will be a sub-account of inventory assets. So do MR, sub-account of inventory assets. So if MR will become a sub-account of inventory assets, we'll end up, after you press save and close, you'll have an MR underneath the inventory asset. But we still need to do one more step which is step 3, to move the item MR. So the two things, one is the item MR and one is the inventory. So the inventory, we want it to match. We want that the item MR should match the inventory asset. That's basically the result. Because the inventory is made up of a number of items. If you go to list item, you have here MR, you have your TLS. These are 2 inventory items. But previously, they are just associated with either 2 different inventory accounts, one with a star, one without a star, or as someone told me before, that they don't have a star, they just have inventory, which is, in that case, you would be able to bypass step number 1. You go over to step number 2 and you'll repeat it twice. So first you're gonna go into the MR item and you're gonna make sure that your asset account here will be MR. You could only do that if you already first create a chart of accounts. So step 1 is chart of accounts, create MR, which is a sub-account inventory. Then in the item, this is the inventory item, you can choose that everything that's associated, the costs of this item, whenever we buy more, is gonna give us, if you get 10 more, which is $10, your inventory is gonna go up with 10 more dollars. Because in an item over here, you only see how many pieces you have and what is the average cost of it. But what is the total what is the total value of the 48 times 75? That is not part of that is not the inventory item. That's the inventory account. So inventory item tells us how many items we have. We have 48. It's each one costs 75 cents. And when we sell it, in other words, even though usually it's going to cost us $1, in this case right now, our average is 75 cents because we got a deal. But if you want to know what's the total value of all the 48 pieces, for that you have to go to the chart of accounts. And the chart of accounts is going to give us $36, which $36 is, is 48 times 75, or 3/4 of 48, right? 75 is 0.75 is 3/4 of a dollar. 3/4 of 48 is $36. So that's really the same thing. So the same way we're going to create an inventory, a new asset MR under inventory assets, you're going to create a new asset TLS under inventory assets. So that's what you would do if you didn't have a star. After you do step 2, but you create an asset of MR and you edit MR to be an asset to the asset account MR, you would again create a new asset called TLS, which is a subdirectory of inventory, and then you would edit the item. Okay, we'll go back to list item. We'll edit the item of TLS and make it again the inventory asset match also TLS. And that way we could break up all the costs and all the value of each item by category. So the same way I have in my P&L, where is this here? The same way I have in my balance sheet, I have my inventory broken up at 36.90, which is 126. On my P&L, I'm also have broken down my cost of goods. Then that will be a future step you will do. You will take, we have two, evidently I had also cost of goods with a star, cost of goods without a star. And you'll be able to rename one cost of goods to MR, one cost of goods to TLS, and then you'll be able to know what is my cost of TLS this year and what is my cost of MR. Let me pause over here and see if there's any questions on this so far. Okay, this is one. Okay. Okay, I'll go one more time again. You're going to go to, if you don't have inventory asset with an asterisk, so I'll tell you, the steps they do is as follows. Actually, it's easier. So you're going to go to Control N, which is new. You're going to make select other current asset. And it'll tell you other current asset is for prepaid expenses, like I told you. When you pay rent for 5 months in advance, the expense is only the first month. But the following 4 months is a benefit, because if you flip your lease to someone, you could collect, you tell them, I already prepaid the 4 months for you, so give me the money. So it's an asset, it's not lost. And if you advance money to an employee, so it's an asset because you could take the money back on the next paycheck. And the same thing is with the inventory. So we're going to have other current asset and continue. And we're just going to name an asset called TLS. Again, TLS is an account, which is a sub of inventory asset. I'm going to press save and close. And we'll do that again. You do one after another. You'll go to the chart of accounts. Again, don't forget to save it. I canceled because I have it already. You go again, Control New. You'll go again to select other current asset, and you'll go continue, and you'll make MR. Account name will be MR, and it'll be a sub-account inventory asset. So that would be the first step, is creating the 2 sub-accounts of inventory. By doing the steps I just showed you, you should have MR and TLS showing as indented under inventory asset. But in your case, you would still have inventory total of 126, and you won't show the 36 and 90 yet, because you created the account, but you didn't move the inventory item into the account. Right now, the inventory items are in the general inventory asset. You created 2 bank accounts, 2 asset accounts, but you didn't move the item into it. That is a second step, right? After making the 2 sub-accounts of inventory asset, then you go to the list and item, and you'll take each of these 2 items, the MR, you'll double click, you'll associate it with asset MR. So now your 48 pieces times 75 won't be in general inventory as was before, right? Until now it's in general inventory. You're moving the whole item MR into inventory MR, right? Maybe this made it click. And the same thing with the TLS. You take the item TLS, which has 45 pieces of $2 valued at 90, which is previously only an inventory asset. You're going to move it down to TLS. And what that does for you is now all the items of TLS are in account TLS. So your 45 pieces at $2, which is 90, and your 48 pieces, which is $36, will show up now in the 2 accounts, the MR item in the MR account, the TLS item in the TLS account, and you have the total. And as I wrote in step 4, you can notice that in chart of accounts, it gives you the total of inventory asset and then the subtotals underneath it. You get a total of 126, underneath it 36 and 90. And the balance sheet, it gives it to you in reverse. The balance sheet that gives it to you first the 36, then the 90, and then the 126, but the result is the same. Step 5, actually, I did not do yet. So that I could do with you today. Again, I'm trying different ideas, and I thought that showing you the end result where we have to get to with inventory asset will be helpful. Incidentally, you can collapse inventory asset and only show you 126. If you look at the balance sheet, you can have one line, 126. But if you want to, there's a expanding arrow. You click on it, and it'll bring you the breakdown. The same thing will be in any account. If you have 5 checking accounts, because you have 5 different banks, you have $1 million, and you want to be insured. Each bank only insures you for $250,000. You open up 5 bank accounts. You put for $200,000 in each one. But for purposes of knowing what's my cash, what's my bank, I could have here 1 million. I didn't even see all my banks. You could go into it and see a breakdown. So these are different tools what you could do to collapse and expand your assets from checking and inventory. I'm going to take a pause over here to let people catch up on the inventory side. And then I'm going to go to step 5, which will help us understand the P&L, as I told you out what we're going to do. Profit and loss on the P&L sheet is that we're going to end up turning the 70 and 114 not just as a blank cost of goods, but I can actually know each item, what is my cost when I sell it. And that would finish the general inventory segment. If anyone has questions on inventory or any of the other segments we had before, you'll stay on to the Q&A. And we're going to go over about the, I guess, for the second half of the class in several minutes to the beginning of payroll. Payroll exists also in the servicing company, but we did now the inventory first. Yeah, so H. Berger has a question. If you have a bunch of sub-accounts, whatever does not fall into the category will just go into main account. Probably what you want to do is, once you're ready doing all sub-accounts, you'll create one general miscellaneous for low-cost items where you want to know the total value of the items, but not necessarily each item. If you have like a 99-cent store, not necessarily you want to know every single item broken in sub-account, how much you have of that item. You want to know in general. You can have high-priced items and low-priced items. So anything, let's say over, if each item in its own is worth $5 or more, I want to know what's the total of that item. But things that cost me, 25 cents or 50 cents, perhaps you don't even, maybe it will be a non-inventory part. Maybe it will be, we had here under items, when we create items, was it Control N? You have things which are non-inventory parts. So there is you sell it, but you're not tracking exactly necessarily what the value is. You have your price, of $0, but you're not going to know the value of that. You could have probably $10,000 worth of low-cost items, and you won't know you have $10,000 value. So then you would do inventory part, but you could just do one miscellaneous, depending on how many you have. But someone wrote to me the other day, they have 3,000. I think the beginning, the 3,000 items in a jewelry store, and if those are expensive items, you might want to have groups, by I don't know, you want to have 3,000 subs, but but then you have to have a other sub. So you'll have to have for each letter, you'll make sub everything that goes under letter A and make accounts for A, for B, for C, because it'll be very hard to handle 3,000 on a row. But these are expensive things, and you will want to know what's the value of your stock. Unless you're just like a broker who sells items, so it's not really inventory anymore. It's just you sell an item for one price and you make a commission, and you're not tracking exactly what you have on hand. Okay, so Anonymous says they did TLS, which was 126. Perhaps you did both as TLS. You have to make one MR account, one TLS account, and then you take the MR item and you associate it with the MR account, and TLS item, and you associate it with the TLS account. That way you should have a breakdown of each one. I seem to find this a very helpful feature. Okay, so again, Amuna says that they're balanced by MR 0, not 36, because you have to first check at your MR item over here, your MR item, double click and make sure you're not just by inventory S, make sure you have inventory MR. Because if you take 48 items of 75 cents and you associate it with the account MR, it has to be $36 there. That's what's supposed to happen. Okay, so that's basically what 1 through 4 was doing. It was creating. I did it. I gave it to because I think there was someone else or told me they also had the star. If they didn't have the star, then you just do start from step 2 and 3 and repeat. So you do 2 step 2 is asset MR, and you make the inventory item MR to associate with MR. Then you do 2 and 3 again, but with the TLS. You create a new current asset of a TLS, and both of them have the sub accounts of inventory asset. And then you edit the inventory TLS, inventory item TLS to be associated with asset account MR. Okay, we're just gonna do, because I have here step 5, we're gonna go to, okay, we're gonna go back into MR. If you notice, the inventory asset, right? So this is the value before we sell it, when we still have it on hand, is in MR. What is the cost when we sell it? That's COGS account. So a shortcut to making a sub is entering a colon after cost of goods sold and typing MR. All I did right now is I made MR be associated with cost with COGS sub account MR. Press tab and it tells you MR is not on the account list. So set it up, no problem. And automatically it shows it that MR will be a sub account of cost of goods sold. If those are watching, and you press save and close, and I press OK, and I will ignore the spell check. And what's going to happen? Everything. We're going to go to the P&L, and you'll see that right now it's a refresh needed. Why? Because now we have a cost of goods for MR. Cost of goods for MR is 114. And then you can compare actually your your general sales, by the way, for merchandise is 655. My total cost of goods is 184. So far we're doing pretty good. We're making money on our cost of goods. The only problem is you got to make sure that you actually sell out. If you get stuck with your cost of goods, if you get stuck with all your inventory, then you might not be making so much money. So the same way I did this for MR, I'm going to do it for TLS, and then this whole line with the asterisk is going to disappear. I'm going to go again to lists, item list, TLS, and we see already, okay, TLS is already associated with TLS on the inventory side, but on the cost of goods side, I'm going to change it, no more asterisk. I'm going to select cost of goods without the asterisk, and I'm going to put in TLS. So now I'm doing the same thing that I did for balance sheet. I'm doing for P&L. I press setup. Now I'm doing one time. I'm going to demonstrate a second time for those who want to see it a second time. Press OK, close, and then you go back to your P&L and you'll see how P&L gives you a breakdown. My cost of goods of MR and TLS. That's what I have. So my MR is 114 because I sold a lot. I sold to Mr. Gaba. I sold 150 pieces. I really only have, and actually that makes, and by the way, you see how this makes sense. If I got 2 orders, one for $100, one for $150, what was my total cost? 150. So I sold 114 of it. And I go to my balance sheet associated to MR. I have $36 left. So that's the plug for MR. MR costed me 150, but I still have 36 in my asset, and the 114 became my cost. Same thing with TLS. TLS, I have 90 still in stock, and my cost, if I look over here at my P&L, is 70. Anyone have questions on what we did on today on the inventory, please post. Anyone needs a repeat, I'll do it again. So again, let's see here. Okay, Moshe's telling me that he created TLS, but I'm getting an error for MR. What is the error you're getting? I don't know. If you need to, if you could post what your error is, we could perhaps help you, or you could stay on for the Q&A. That was answered. Yeah, Anonymous tells me they cannot make an account, the sub-account of itself. That's correct. That's why step one, I had to do it in a roundabout way if you had already a start. But we are not making a sub-account of yourself. We're creating it. So Anonymous has to explain what's he doing that's giving him that error. Okay, I'm looking at you. Avramia says that account type, it doesn't let you enter other current asset. Let's see, what are you doing? What's Avramia doing? You do Control A, and you do Control N. So now you're making a new account. And you have to give a drop down. Did you go to the drop down over here? The drop down gives you other current asset. Maybe they didn't notice that. So if Avramia can let me know if that his answer was solved. Okay, so again, okay, someone says, Anonymous says his TLS is 90. So that should be good. Not TLS should be 90. And okay, thank you, Sam. Yeah, so Shoshana is asking, could you do this when you put an inventory? Absolutely, absolutely. Whenever you get new items, you create new subs in your inventory asset first, because you can't create, you have to create the account first. Chart of accounts has to be existence first. Then when you create the item, you tell it which account will the item be associated with. So if you're getting two new items, this is similar to a store when they're stocking their store and they're entering things in the computer. So you're doing a scanner, it should know that it exists. What does a barcode mean? A barcode means an item. So in this case, first you have to have an inventory account, whether it's bakery goods or whether it's a meat department or whatever it is. You're making your asset accounts. And then when you get a new item, you have different types. In the bakery itself, you have many types of items, but all those items, those rolls, those bagels, those donuts will all be associated with an account called bakery goods. And they say that with the meat department, we make all the sales of all different types of meat products. You want to be able to get a report. What was my, you don't want to say, okay, I just took out my meat department X amount, and my cost of my store was X amount, because you sell paper goods, you sell meat, you sell. You want to break down, this is how you dissect and you segments your business to see what amount of money I'm making from which department. So the inventory asset will be like your department. That's your account that you make money from. Each item that you sell will be an item associated with that department. I believe that I hope there wasn't okay, but there. Thank you. Okay, Shmuel Rabin has a question. Please stay for Q&A because it seems a little more detailed, that one. Someone says they have TLS is $240, $24 and the same 48 in inventory. Well, that means your average cost is 50 cents if you look, right? And we can tell you 48 items, which is $24, means it's 50 cents each. So you have to go back and see your second invoice, second receipt from a correspondent. What was your item? what was your cost price? Or it's possible to be you oversold your first order and everything you got in the last order had a negative value plus a 75 cents value, but that doesn't seem likely. Anonymous wants to know what's the difference of what I did at the beginning of the class. Well, the first part of the class is the basic inventory, and today is like editing items in the inventory, creating sub accounts, and if you didn't, many people would be helpful for them to have a review of the basic before they went over to the more advanced, but maybe it wasn't necessary for you. But I hope that it will still, the review is always beneficial regardless. Okay. Whoever has different values, as CF Rami, please you have to do for Q&A. Q&A is to ask, or it's an audio. You could talk and better than typing and trying to guess. You'll want to explain, and I'll open up my screen, and we'll go from there. That's usually about 9:45. We go over to Q&A. No one has any questions. We're not holding you. You could leave. This is the whole class is actually voluntary. Those will stay for Q&A. Some people learn more from other people's questions, but for the most part, it's about an hour and 45 minutes of instruction. The review about half an hour to 40 minutes, or sometimes it takes 2 hours for instruction and about a little less time for the Q&A. But let's see if we could go over to the payroll for now, because I see I cleared up the questions that are here. And a little trivia. Okay, so first thing I want you to analyze, I put as a preface to payrolls, go check the P&L for year 2020 and see what sales income is. So go to profit and loss, right? I happen to have it open and make sure that it shows the year, this fiscal year drop down. Either you have to go down to this fiscal year, or you could manually put in a Y in the beginning. If you're in the year 2020, actually I pressed Y again, went back a year. So I have to press R plus. R plus has the same effect because R takes me to the end of the year, and plus brings me one day further. And I'm here through the year. My total sales should be, okay, oops, so let's put it back to today. You should have for the year, and the year should be total sales income. Sales income is my service, 50, 25, 10. Ignore the fact that my meat says 529. You should have 1/1 till 12/31. Okay, and total income should be 3165. Why am I asking you to look at this? Because you'll see the effect of what happens when we earn income without making an invoice, and then we go make an invoice. And you'll see, even though technically you earn money, but your income doesn't go up until you generate an invoice for it. So that is one of the things I'm going to have down in the steps 5, 6, or whatever, 6 or 7. You'll see in step 7. So the first thing is we covered some, many parts of customers, many parts of the vendors and different titles. Next week, we will go through a number of the menus. What can you do with each step? What are they for? What do you do for it? Right now, we're starting payroll. And that's the next, that's employees, employee center. That's, again, one way to get to employee center is the menu. And you go to employee center. You could go to company homepage. And again, you go to employee center. That's the third, after vendors, after customers, you have employee center. Now, you'll see over here that I ask you to turn on payroll or enter. You could enter time, but it doesn't let you turn on payroll. Is actually a paid, what's it called? A paid service for QuickBooks. because we understand why everyone wants to learn how the accounting works in general. You put in the vendors, you put in the customers. But why the people in school want to know how to actually make a check, maybe they're actually writing checks, so it's actually the business. So there's a restriction on this item. But we could do next class, we could, or between this class and next class, we could get a 1 month free trial on the payroll. Even though the software we had for 4 or 5 months, it's like to learn for a whole semester, payroll will be available for a month, for 1 month. So since we're finishing about the end of June, so we could activate it after this class, like tomorrow, to activate the 3 months trial. For those people who told me that the software is already expiring, it's because they never got the second link, which was the educational software. They got the regular 1 month trial of the software. So they'll have to download the new software and get a license. You can't really activate a trial software. You could activate the educational software for 4 or 5 months, but the trial software expires after a month. But don't worry, your work is not lost, because our company, We Do It All, is a file similar to a Word document. So this is a QuickBooks file. It's not the actual software. You could take the file and save it on one location. So when you reinstall software, you can open it up. That will be ask and Q&A. And the third way to do employees is just to click on the icon, employees. So I created over here, this is what we're going to do today. We're going to create 2 people, Pinchas Tadros and Yaakov Fishman. For general trivia, if anyone knows where Pinchas Tadros lives, you see the address. You could show your general knowledge here. What is the significance of that address? So I'm missing 300 receivables. Okay. No, you're not missing. Okay. Okay. The first thing we're creating, what we do is, like anything, whenever you're in a vendor or you're in a customer or you're an employee, you go Control N, should create you you get a new person. In this case, what are we going to do? We're going to enter Pinchas, and his last name is Tadros. Okay, Pinchas Tadros. And that's what's going to come on his check. Your employee has a first name and a last name. This is the legal name. What's going to come on the check? He can have a social security number. There's gender. You can track your employees. He has date of birth. So I wrote over here, you could put in his social security number as 012. Oh, that's 123 4 5 6 7 8 9. Give him a date of birth of January 1970. So you put, this is what you'll do. You'll put in 1 2 3 4 5. So again, for those who would rather not listen to me but do it on their own software, now is your time to do so. As I'm going through the steps 1 through 6, you could do that in your own software, and you can only listen to me and not watch what I'm doing. For those that the visual works better for them, so you can watch as they enter it. One second here. Okay, so people were, let's go back here. This is balance sheet. Okay, what is the balance sheet for accounts receivables is 1227.50. If everyone has that number, that is the right number. So people worry that they're off by $300. No, you're not off by $300. That's actually what your account receivable will be after tonight. Be $300 more. So you have to have account receivables as of now is 1227, and your P&L is 2510 as sales income, a total 3165. What's going to happen is our income will go up. I'll give you a preview. Our income will go up by $300, but since it's only billable, so the 2510 will turn to 2810, and our accounts receivables will go up from 1227 to 1527, as I put in. What's this here? In step 10, you'll notice that's when your income goes up to 2810, and your account receivables will go up at that time. So let's see what we could accomplish here. We're in the middle of the employee. We're a new employee. We're putting in, his name is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. His book start is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, that was because you can't enter 10 digits. You can only have 9, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the gender is male. Pinchas is a male name. We have the date of birth, 01, 1970. And could be, I didn't put in status because he could be single, he could be married. It's not irrelevant to here right now. We're just filling in random fields. You know, there are different fields. Is it important to know if the person is disabled or not? There could be value to that, but we're not doing that today. I-9 form. I-9 form is very important. You cannot hire an employee without an I-9. You have to make sure he is eligible to work. You don't want to hire illegal people to work in your company. So you have to have, do you have it or not? So if he walks in and it still says no, you have to have, within the first day, even before he gets his first paycheck, make sure that you could change this to a yes. And he might not have an I-9 in one respect, but he can have work authorization. These are different technical legal matters. That's not so much for bookkeeping, but QuickBooks will help you keep track of this as well. Is he a U.S. citizen? Is he, what is it, ethnicity? Hope we're not doing racial profiling, but they want to know exactly what is ethnicity. Is he military or not? You know, sometimes you might have a company that will have a credit for hiring veterans. They have a certain percentage, you know, 10%, 20% of the workforce, or they're going to advertise, you know, to get certain grants based on the fact that they're helping veterans. I'm just throwing ideas out there. Status, are they active or are they reserve? But for the most part, this is tab number 1, personal. Personal information is his name, his social, his gender, his date of birth, and legal status in America, etc. Then there's the address and a contact. And you can put in his address. His address is, you can put in 617 6th Street. Incidentally, that's the address of BMG. And this is, we'll assume he's someone learning in the Kailul, in the Besmedish Gavaya, and he's going to have a side job, an hour a day, where he's working for our company. We do it all. We're going to outsource him, and we put his address, city, state, and zip. Get a phone number, email, website, whatever comes to mind. This is fiction, obviously, but it's an example. We could fill out all these fields, state, you know, by the acronym and the zip code. So we put it over here. So in this case, this would have been NJ. This will be 08701. This is how you're filling out the form. This is all we put in for his address. So you have him, you have his address. Okay, so we'll put in 617 6th Street. And then you go to additional info. That's step 4. So again, step 1 and 2 are really together. It's creating the employee status and his personal info. That's the first tab. Step 3 in our case is really the second tab, address and contact. Step 4 in today's class is the additional info tab. The additional info could be, for example, he has an employee ID. Many times people call up a company and they don't give their social, but there's an employee ID. They give only their first name, they don't give their last name. Or maybe they will give their first and last name, but there's an employee ID in case there are 2 people that have the same, you know, Michal Weiss, and it might be, or Joseph Goldstein, and you know there are multiples. So how do you differentiate one from the other? They have an employee ID. There's billing rate level. We're going to leave this for now, but technically there are 2 ways. Actually, no, we'll just mention it, but we're not going to edit it. You can have an employee, which everything he does is the same price. So everything you bill out will be one price. His job is $30 an hour, no matter what he does. Then there's custom hourly rates for the services, just like we created our 4 items. So we have our standard rate of 30, 120. These are our items, but we're billing it out maybe at a different rate. Standard is $30. In this case, for this, you want a particular person. We can have the general, the entry level employees. You want to do it with Tadris and he's special. Okay, so we're going to charge you $40 an hour for bookkeeping. We're going to charge you $120 to get his consulting services. That does not mean that he will get the $40 or the $120. This is our company. Our company has our general rate of $30, $120, $75. And then there's the billing rate, which we are going to bill out for. It's associated with this employee. It might be a lower rate. Generally we charge $30 an hour, but if you want to just have a basic, we'll give you $25. And it could be higher, it could be lower. That's basically the idea of the custom rate for service on this employee. The same employee, sometimes he's generating for you a $40 income, sometimes generating for you a $120 income. It's all what you want to do. But again, with additional info, he has to get paid at some point. We have here as payroll frequency is bi-weekly. So I'm going to X this out for a second. And I'm going to go to the actual employee, which I have. And that's what you're going to fill at Employee Center. We have this employee, we're going to edit him because he's already prepared. And so we have him, I had him actually as a married and white for whatever reason. But it's not ma'akiv at all. I assume if he's 40 years old, he's married, or actually he's 50 years old in this case. Payroll info. Okay, so he's bi-weekly. Now I'm creating a new payroll item. As you see over here, you can have hourly rates and annual rates, right? So this person is billing out for services. How does he earn his income? He earns an income through a timesheet, as I will show you. So he fills out that he works an hour a day. He works an hour a day. So for a week, he works 5 hours. And he could pick which item he's working for. Today, we put for purpose of our example, web design. He sits an hour a day, he's doing a web design for Ploni Almoni. So if you recall, Ploni Almoni is our customer. So Pinchas Tadris, our employee, is doing a job for a customer, Ploni Almoni. So what are we billing out? If he's doing web design, we know what web design is. We had it before. If you're not sure, you can always go to your item list and items. And you'll see that your web design, your WD, is a $75 per hour item. So Pinchas Tadris is going to generate for us $75 a day for the business. In a week, which has 5 days, he's theoretically generating $375. Let's see, we're middle of the employee. But what does he get? His rate will be $40. So we pay him, we outsource him for $75, but we're paying him $40. And we make $35 to cover overhead. We're our business after all. So I created an item called PRH. If you go add new, and it's asking you if you want hourly or annual or commission or bonus. These are pretty much some of how you pay an employee. You pay him by the hour. And after a week, you take the sum of the hours he works and he gets paid. You can have an annual salary. You give him a fixed rate and you divide it by the 26 payrolls, or if it's bi-weekly, or 24 payrolls if it's semi-monthly. It's his annual salary, or he gets a commission. So really, he doesn't get a fixed hour rate. He makes a bill. He generates income for a customer, and you take that whole invoice and you take whether it's 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever you make up for that employee. The same thing could be for if you had a waiter, and we say the standard gratuity is 15 or 20%. It keeps on going up every time we're swiping a new credit card. But by restaurant, maybe now they'll be more flexible because restaurants need The businesses are slowly opening up, but or there's bonuses. You pay them a bonus for good work. It's not tied to his hourly rate or his annual, it's a bonus. In this case, PRH was payroll hourly, so we took an hourly rate. So we go next, and we create, so it's a regular, and it's a regular overtime, sick, or vacation. Okay, companies have some sick days, some vacation days, overtime, so it's a time and a half. That's required, but some people could pay more. And the idea is if you're already going to have one or two employees working overtime, you might as well just take in a new employee at regular pay, why pay extra? So again, we have the hourly rate, wages, is regular pay. So if his rate is $40 for regular pay, what will happen is when you're going to have to pay him for overtime, automatically it's going to calculate as $60 because it's time and a half. Anyway, so after we select the regular pay, we click next, and we enter a name, which will be in this case PRH, or you could give it hourly payroll, whatever you want to do, or you could do WD payroll because you want to know what you pay your web designers. However, it's fit. This is all an example. In real life, you're going to use whatever works for you, not these weird names that I give you, OMR and TLS. You can take what you want. As you see, I also after I created that one, the salary. So let's I'm going to edit this a second. Employee center. Okay, so purposes. 1 second. Okay, so purposes, I'm going to do, just to make it simple, do hourly wages, regular pay, and I'm going to pick web design hourly. So the web design hourly. And what is the rate? And the account, you're associating this with payroll expenses. So there's three things we did so far. We picked hourly wages. That's the new item we did for payroll. We did regular pay, right, as opposed to overtime. And the name for the regular pay is WD hourly, it was web design hourly. And then which account is it? Now it's going to bring you anywhere the chart of accounts. You'll see all your chart of accounts. But by default, it tells you probably if it's an employee, it's a payroll expense. So they chose it for you. So why reinvent the wheel? Say, sure, I'm happy with it, and you finish it. Good. Good. So I see a lot of people already commented. I didn't know where the book is from. Address. Good. Okay. Employee, obviously we don't have the full payroll activated here. I would go also to turn on payroll in QuickBooks. It's going to want me to sign up. So I said, after today's class, you could register for the free trial for enhanced 30-day free trial. Try it free. This is what you're going to have. And this is what you can do after tonight's class. And that should hopefully carry you to the end of this presentation of the QuickBooks. Okay, let's close that a second. I see any more questions here. So okay, so that was Judy. It's fine. Mona says they were PRH. You can leave it PRH. I changed it WD because I already created PRH, and I wanted to see the prompts that come after a new item, so you would see it the same. I did not edit PRH. I created another new item. That's so the items in chart of accounts and item is easier to edit. Here, the item name I did add new. So you see I still have salary, PRH, and WD hourly. And WD hourly is still coming at $40. Okay. If you, hopefully you also wrote in $40. But in this case, you could change it. You could change it to $30. In this one, though, you could change the actual rate. But the item name I did with add new. So I'm leaving it at $40 an hour. And you see as a check where it says use time data to create paychecks. Well, this will really mean, and we should be able to see this when we activate QuickBooks, but the first half we'll see today. If he does 5 hours of work, that's going to generate for the company $375, 5 times 75. And then we could go ahead and we could create an invoice for $375. In this example, in step 7, I only made it 4 hours for 300 just to show you what happens when you do the invoice. What's about this, about the Pinchas Tadras? He is now entitled to $200 because he did 5 hours of work at $40 an hour. And we're using that time data to create his paycheck. Now we do the paycheck, it's based on the hours that he put on his timesheet hours, the timesheet of work. And we'll show you that, the timesheet in a second, but we're still here. So again, so step number 4, we put in we created the payroll item PRH, or in this case, WD hourly, it's all the same. Rate is $40, and this is info. We know that we're gonna bill about 75. That depends on the item of service he's doing. Now we need to do his hire date. Employment info. Go to the next one. He was hired at 5/22. That was pretty much just before Shavuos, and he went straight to work on the 24th. He was working 1, 2, 3, 4. He worked for 5 days. Even in Erev Shavuos, he managed to stick in an hour before Chatzos. You know, if the yeshiva gave him off Erev Yom Tov, he put it to good work. But usually he's doing it after hours, Ben Asdarim. And we have here his regular employment type. He's not an officer. He's not an owner. Statutory is a different type of employee. He's a regular employee. Now there's also, they have here original hire date. Could be he came, he left, he's coming back again. But we just simplified. He's working 5/22. Release date is when he leaves our company. He's just coming in, so he's not leaving. And this is information you want to keep track of an employee. You know, when you're going to get, for example, on unemployment, and people start asking when did this person leave? Did he leave because on his own he quit and he's not entitled to unemployment, or you let him go? What did you release him? And you ought to have this information on record, so you have to see. This is a full-time, part-time employee. In this case, he's doing by the hour. As a seasonal, he's exempt or non-exempt. This could be from payroll, tax withholdings. Is he a key employee? This is really internal in the company. Is he really key or not? You know, one time you come to a meeting and you review the employees, see which ones do we really have to keep because of key employees. And frankly, a lot of this could be a sensitive level of information that not everyone would have access to. Only maybe the head bookkeeper, they're different. Here, employee could be inactive or active. In this case, he is active because he's just coming in. He might have a title, he could have a supervisor. Again, obviously not vendors, but in the company, there could be an employee. And you have multi-levels. If you have a company of, say, 30 employees with 3 supervisors, you want to know who reports to who. So let's say, for example, a complaint comes in about this person. Who would you report this to? Again, why is this a bookkeeper's job? Well, this just happens to be a software program which keeps information in one place. Let's say the head bookkeeper, one of the officers of the company walks over to the bookkeeper, say, pull up for me who's this person's supervisor because I want to be able to talk to him. You know, sometimes you have employees, you send that on the road. and you need a job and you want the proper supervisor to tell their employee to go out. You don't want to have one supervisor calling the wrong employee because I don't know you. Then there's different departments. And this is pretty much the beginning of what you would put the information for the employee. And you press OK, and you save all this information. You will have done steps 1 through 5. Actually, the first half of 5. We're going to do now the second half of step 5 after I look if anyone had questions of this. So far, let's see. Someone's asking if you can edit item name for earnings. I have to look into it. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if any of you got any errors about what to do with payroll liabilities. That probably would have shown up. If you were just watching, let me know when you get there, and we'll walk you through that part as well. So just to make a quick recap, if you have your Pinchas Tadris here, you would see only his name and his address, his personal information. That would be steps number 2. We didn't put in much more than his address, but if you go edit, what comes up under the personal information? Actually, it will show the personal and the address and contact. The address and contact would show up. Lakewood, New Jersey, and a zip code. So you would see the address and contact. You don't see a social over here. It's not for everyone to see as soon as you go into the employee center. And what do we enter? We entered step number on the personal. Was step number 2. We put in his social and his DOB. That was required. You can also put in his gender and his ethnicity if you want. Then we went to step number 3. We put in address and contact. But we pretty much did his address. And then we went to step number 4, additional info, which was the 3rd tab. We didn't put anything as employee ID number, but we went to the next tab, which is actually the tab number 4, matching step number 4, and we put in that he's a bi-weekly, right? You can pay people by the day. There's day workers, there's weekly workers, there's many different ways you can pay an employee. Even some people get their paycheck once a year. I'm not sure who wants to wait a whole year to get their money. To wait, but maybe if you pay them in advance, they'll be happy to take it. But evidently, quarterly is also a method that's used, and annually. Maybe this is reserved for the owner of the company, that after he pays all his money out, he just takes one big lump check at the end, or he takes advances against his annual salary. So he's a biweekly frequency, and payroll schedule will be when you choose the first date. Once you choose the first date, which we're not really gonna do right now because we can't create actual checks until we activate the software, but we have the item name, which is PRH, and PRH really means nothing. It's just a name for payroll. And it's the hourly is $40, and his employee info is he's hired at 5/22. He cannot be working before 5/22. Another significance, incidentally, for 5/22 for hire date is when you have employees, you must have workers' comp in place, workers' comp and disability. If you do not have workers' comp and disability, the fines are outrageous. It could be thousands of dollars for every 10 days of non-coverage. So when you get your workers' comp policy, make sure that any employee is hire date is after the effective date of the policy. You cannot have hire dates of 5/20 when your policy was effective only at 5/27 or 6/1 because you just lost $1,000 in the fine when they do your audit. Okay, so now that we got the basic employee information, employee's in, he has his work, and he already gave us the I-9, assuming it was on file. We're going to go to get the employee center, and we're going to enter a time, use weekly timesheets. Again, employee, drop down the second item. If you're listening only and you're doing your own software, employee menu, the second item is enter time, and go to use weekly timesheets. Activate T-sheets is another thing which QuickBooks will be happy to sell you as another service. Use weekly timesheets is a manual. So you could go use weekly timesheets. And who are we using it for? This is a timesheet for Pinchas Tadris. Pinchas, he's our employee. And you go previous, because let's say we're not in the week June 1 to 7. He's entering this time. He was hired 5/22, which was Friday. I believe he got his interview. And he said, we told him, okay, you ready to start next week? Sure, no problem. He starts on Sunday 24th through the 30th. So let's go back the previous week, May 25th through the 30th. And you're gonna enter in, what's he doing? He's working for customer Poliamoni. So put him customer Poliamoni. And then what's the service or what's he doing for him? He is doing WD, which is website design. Good. So now we know the customer, who the customer is, because when he does the work, we're going to bill that customer, Poliamoni. We know that what he's offering him, which is what we're billing out, which is the money that our company will make as WD, that's the $75. What is the payroll item? What is it costing us for the employee? You will pick either PRH or WD, right? So the payroll item is not set up for this employee or as a zero rate. So let's go back to PRH. PRH is $40. So now when you do this, we know that every time Pinchas Tadris works with Poliamoni, for every WD, which we bill up for 75, he has a payroll item of PRH, which is giving him $40 towards him. And all you have to do is enter one for each day of the week. It's a unit or it's an hour. It's all the same. One for, actually, they don't have Sunday here. So we start Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So we have to go back to previous week, because he couldn't be working on Friday, which is Shavuos. So we have to start previous week. So what you do here is first do one for the first 4 days, one for Monday, one for Tuesday, one for Wednesday, one for Thursday, which is total is 4 and it's billable. Let's check. This is his timesheet, which he worked 4 hours, and we create a bill for it. And press save and close, save and new. Okay, press save and new. So we're gonna do another timesheet. Is to add 1 day to the Sunday, the 24th. Okay. Now, if you did save and new, what's going to happen? You go. Okay, 1 second here. Touches. Okay. So in my example, I happen to put him in for 5 days going Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of May 28 to 24. It's split through the months, but what you really want to do, you only want to put him 1 hour on Friday the 22nd. So you want to have in this week of May 18 to May 24, you could put, you're going to put him on the Sunday, the 24th. So ignore the 5 days I have in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You will put him on the 1 day, which is Sunday, the 24th. And you're going to save and new. Then you go again to Pinchas Tadris, our employee, and you pick Ploni Amon, the customer, the service item, payroll item. Okay. Okay. So basically, you should have a timesheet between 2 timesheets. You should have a total of 5 days. Okay. reports, banking, and okay, employees again. So again, we're going to go back to employee, enter timesheets. Let's see what the timesheets are. June 1 to 7 is 0. That makes sense. Previous, you should have over here, this is what your thing should look like. You should have Ploni Amoni. You should have service item WD, payroll PH, and you have one for Monday, one for Tuesday, one for Wednesday, one for Thursday, one for Friday. Not for Friday, scratch that. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 hours billable. And then why the press closed? Go back to his timesheet again and see what you had in the previous week. Go get employees, enter timesheet. So now I'm gonna have the same as you. I have here from May 25th to 31st, you'll see Ploni Amoni, WD, PRH, 4 different days that has an hour. And I go to the previous week and I'm gonna change this to the 24th. Practically. Okay, so that part is done. Let me see if everyone did that timesheet. Okay, let's see what the thing's coming in here at 9. Okay, so Judy asked me, I guess not today, how do you bring up employee information? If you employee center, or if you click the icon for employees, you have Pinchas Tadris. Once you have Pinchas Tadris, you click the edit button that's here on the top right. Go to the edit button, and then you'll be able to see all this information. If that, I assume that's your question. Mr. Katzer says he doesn't have a payroll item. I'm not sure if you don't have payroll at all or you don't have payroll item. Create a payroll item. You can create the payroll item. Again, we added the employee on the payroll info. You make an item called add new, and or without adding new, you just type in PRH or anything else. And if it didn't exist already, when you press tab, it will say set up, and it will ask you those 3 questions. Is it regular wages? Is it hourly wages, regular wages? What's the name of the item? And it's going to keep that name. It's going to give it the account payroll expenses, which is associated with that. That should answer the anonymous attendees as well. Someone said I don't have a column for payroll item. Where is this in your? Shoshana says they don't have a column for payroll item. Where are you referring to? On which screen? I need to get clarity on that. Okay, we're just going to do about 5 more minutes on this over here, just to create one invoice. That's all I'm going to do in step 7. I'm going to create one invoice just to show you what happens. I don't have. If you did a week in June, so then just go into that timesheet and delete the ones that you have over there. Go employee center, you're in the timesheets. So if you do want to just, if it had a 1 over here, just go back and make 0, or exit out, make sure there's nothing here. You'll go back to the week of May 25th to May 31st. Make sure you have 4 ones, one for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. If it's easier, you could put a 1 on, if you want to get it all in one timesheet, you can put a 1 on May 31st. You don't have to necessarily split 2 timesheets. As long as you skipped Friday and Shabbos with the Shavuos, that's fine. So you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday. The weeks go from Monday to Sunday in this case. I want a total of 5 hours. You have 5 billable. So you can have it this way: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday 31st. Or you can have it in the other timesheet, which is the Sunday, the 24th. Again, as long as he's after the hire date of the 22nd. It's something always important to know. I happen to put it in a week earlier, but it doesn't. It's just for an example, but you should have, and I actually only have billable 1 more hour on my case because I already made an invoice for 4, so it doesn't show the check for billable. But I'm going to show you the difference between pre-billing and post-billing. And as I mentioned earlier, after you make the bill, that's what it's going to show up on your P&L. If you would go now, all of you, income tracker. I showed you go to the icon called income tracker. You will see on the bottom, there's a Ploni-Almoni line, time and expense, 4375. There's no date of or due date. You don't know when to expect the money because you don't know. He never got a bill. So if you never got a bill, how could you expect the date when to get it? So this is an open. This is $375. Okay, that's what you see. So on one hand, it's income, right? It's income which you will get at one point, but as it shows in the income tracker. But if you go to P&L and you push T for today, which will show 6/1, you will still see the same 2510. You will not have the increase of the $300 or the 375. That is actually step number 7. Step number 8 is that was actually 7 and 8. 7 is showing the 375 that you will have as income with no date, and step number 8 shows you. It goes back to the first step we did in the first number 1. That you go to P&L, you'll still see sales income is 2510. And here in step number 8, it's still 2510. Even though we did work and we earned theoretically $375, but we never made a bill. In accrual, you get it counted by the bills. That's only step number 9. Step number 9 is going to create an invoice. How do you create an invoice? So you have here the last line under action. You have open. You have something open. You have paid. You have due. But you have open. Open is that you did. That's open billing. You have. Don't confuse this with the top over here because this is. I already generated an invoice for a previous week. But what we did today, the 375, you could create an invoice for it. And it shows here, there were 5 different hours of WD, 1111. Our timesheet showed it as separate days, but for an invoice, it doesn't break it down by the day, it just gives it 5 quantities. Each one is 1. So what I told you to do is only bill for 4. You create an invoice, even though it says 375. We're creating an invoice for 300. So I guess the idea is you would delete one of the. You will take out one of the WDs. You delete one. Just delete the last line. So the invoice is 300. So we're billing for 1, 2, 3, 4, which is 300. And you save and close. Once you save and close, what is going to happen? This 375 will transform into 300 up here as an invoice. If you're billing today at 6/1, then we can expect $300 of income to come either if it's the same day, if it's due upon receipt, or it could be a few days later if you give them 10 days terms. So this 375, when you create an invoice, will turn to 300 as a receipt. and it will still leave you $75 as unbilled. There's plenty of money here. So if we go to customers, you'll see now a new bill for Ploni Almoni for $300. That's invoice number 7. This card changes it. Okay, so this is what we have. What do we have? We have a bill for 1, 2, 3, 4 times 75. So we see how do we get to this number? We had Pinkas Tadras. We made under the timesheet, payroll, enter timesheet, use weekly timesheet. We made 5 hours, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is some of the weakest 25 to 31st. Just look at it that way. And we billed out 4 of them with 1 hour still not billed. The effect of that now will bring up your income by $300. And all the people asked me before, why, how come my account receivables was off? Now, if you go for the year, the report for the year shall show sales income went up at 2810. If you double click on it, it will show you the $300 is from the invoice. Ploni Almoni's invoice. If there was no invoice, it would not be able to get the sales income. Where is it pulling it from? It's pulling it from invoice. And at the same token, the accounts receivables in the balance sheet, right? There's a debit and a credit. The credit is that sales income went up. What is the debit? The debit is accounts receivables, which is an asset, window, balance sheet. And now, if accounts receivables before was only 1227. If I do it for the year, then it's going to be actually 1867, because I just made a second invoice today for $300, which I'm going to delete. It should only be, as of today's class, you see if I double check my account receivables for the year, you'll see that I had made, what is here? I'm going to go into this. I believe accounts receivables, anyone should double check their numbers, what they have in accounts receivables. The income item is correct. It's 2810 for the year. For sales income, a total of 3465, as it says in step 10, because the income has a $300 from Ploni Almoni. The balance sheet, I have to double check because right now it seems like it moved up a lot. Let's go by this. 1 second, this is for the year. Balance sheet today. Go minus, go back 3 days. Okay, it was 1567. Oh, it was 1567. So now it's supposed to be. Okay, so it's good. I didn't say that thing. So we should have here. Okay, so someone's asking about the shortcuts. The shortcuts we have in the syllabus we gave out two weeks ago. We gave a bunch of shortcuts out, but primarily they're days, which the beginning of the year, the end of the year is the Y and the R, and the month is the M and the H. It's the beginning and the end of the month. And if you want to get to next month, you do H plus, which means the end of the month plus a day. When we go back a month, you go M minus, which is the beginning of the month and minus a day. I'm looking here at the questions after 9:40. To go to timesheet, it's employees. The drop down is enter time, and use weekly timesheet. That's for Sam. Where can you check out that you did correctly? Well, that's Victor's asking. Well, if you look at the invoice, we know if Plone Money only has $300, that invoice is done correctly. You go back to the timesheet and you review the timesheets. The bookkeeper should also be reviewing timesheets. They don't just get a timesheet and write out a check. You should double check the timesheet if it makes sense. If there are enough hours in the week to justify, or the day to justify the hours put there. Now, this one employee has a bunch of lines they could put. We could mention this next time, but you could go into the same timesheet for Tadris, and you can enter multiple jobs in one time. Pinnacle Tadris does a bunch of jobs. You have 20 different people, different items, different hours, and then there's a total on the bottom. In this particular case, it happens to be that it's only 4 hours for that week or 5 hours for that week for Playamoni, but if they put a total of 80 hours, you want to double check, what they did for each employee. So that's, I believe, for the timesheet. And I'm going to go, the last two steps 9 and 10, we're going to review on Wednesday. I'm going to look at the Q&A first. That's people typed in already to see what questions are they can answer. And we're going to timesheet. There is payroll. Why don't you see payroll item? Good question. Did you create it? You should. I'm not sure what your question is or why you're having that error. We have to talk about it. If you have, assuming you have the same software version that we have. Now you could make reports. We'll see next time on employees to see how many hours he has. But this was just, getting started with the payroll, getting an employee, getting in the timesheet. And next time we're also going to add a person with a salary and see if we could actually create a check. That's what I want to see if we could do that for Wednesday, and we should be able to. Everyone, what they could do is they go to employees' payroll and turn on payroll, and activate the free trial for 30 days. Which hours are we putting in? Not sure what the question is. Okay, Mr. Katz was asking, when you're entering payroll, you need to check off use time data to create paychecks if you want payment info to show up. Is that a question as a statement, or that's answering your previous question? Let's see, employees center. We have under employment, under payroll info. If I take off the time data to create paychecks, then I go back to his timesheet. And I put in Pinchas. No, the payroll item is still here. Entered in the employee vendor in the name field for entering time data. So we entered him. No, so in this case, it wouldn't let you, if I unchecked use time data, it wouldn't even let me enter timesheet at all. Would it? Okay, service item. Okay, that's the answer. But I told them before that you should leave a check. Okay, those people that don't have payroll item here, it's because by the employee themselves, they didn't check off use on the payroll info, employee payroll info, use time data to create paychecks. And what I said as I did it, I said that the person, in order to be entitled to his money, has to be able to bill out those hours. Then he gets his timesheet those 5 hours. Now I go back to employees and his timesheet and you will be able to see on the address, you'll see the payroll item. So thank you to Mr. Casper for that. That's also what I was saying before. I'm glad you found that out also. Okay, Shoshana, service item in the notes. So I think we just answered your question. Could be you probably typed it in before I addressed it. Okay, anonymous testing, but putting under Pinchas Tadris automatically puts in the Plony got those 5 hours. No, you have to choose the customer, because Pinchas Tadris could say that he does these 5 hours, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but that only is telling us what Pinchas Tadris wants to earn. But who are we billing out? You know, we don't want to just spend money in Pinchas Tadris. We have to have a customer that we're charging the 75 to give him his 40. And it's very possible that he has, you know, Plony Almoni, let's say for Monday and Tuesday. And then he did, this employee said to have activities transferred to paychecks. Good, so they have to put the payroll item, very good, PRH. And service item is WD. But then he might have another hour, which he's working for Rabbi Cohen, and he's doing something else, which is called consulting, GC, and that's to be something on Wednesday. Now, we're going to build this up for $100, but his rate is still $40 because we never gave him a higher rate. So you could fill a whole timesheet with different customers, different hours and different days, and obviously different service items. He's still PRH. Now, if you want to be nice, you could say, no, PRH is the item which gives him $40. That's the WD, which is 75. But if he's doing GC, which is 100, I'll create a new payroll item, which will be GCH, which will be General Consulting Hourly, and he will get $50. So he should get a little bit of an increase in pay for generating more income. You know, we get an extra $25 an hour, let him get $10 an hour more. So you could do that. You could create service items, which are the rates which we bill out to the customers, and payroll items, which are the different rates for his hours, which he gets, PRH or General Consulting H, etc. As we said before, you can have different billing rate levels for different services that he does. In that way, you would even eliminate the payroll item because you already entered in one master sheet what is the standard rate and what is the billing rate level. Let's see. So to give one of anonymous. Well, anonymous says, I don't have payroll options in the timesheet. So where are you? I'm not, yeah, you'll get in line in the Q&A and we'll let the auto prompt you. Do this in the audio call. When I tried to save and close, they asked for an email address. Okay, so put an email address for this. The reason they're asking for email address is because you had the invoice. Here we go. When you create an invoice for a customer, what happens with invoices? Does it get lost in a black hole? You create it and it stays by you. Then how does the customer ever know to pay you or get the invoice? So there's print later or email later. That when I finish all my invoices, I made 10 invoices today, I could print them all out and mail them. Maybe I want to email them. By default, probably you had also print and email or whatever, you want to have a hard copy. So if you're saying you want to email it, then when you save and close, it's going to say, put an email address. Otherwise, it's never going to get emailed. You can't choose email later without, you never put an email address for Plony Amoni. That's the answer to your question. What I'm thinking was company email address. Yeah. So I just show you could, when you do the delivery method, you could do it to print and you can mail it. You go to Q, by that invoice, by Plony Amoni, you would double check, you would click print later. Or you can print now, just go directly to print it, then you don't forget. We'll show you later on where do you find all the print laters that you did, all the email laters that you did. Where do you find them? Okay. Someone's assignment of stuff. Net income is 540. I believe so. If it rings a bell, let me see the P&L. Yeah, 540 and 25 cents. Don't forget that quarter. Because of a big mitzvah with that day. MT is asking, how do you view all Almoni's work weeks on one page? Maybe you mean Pinchas Tadra's work weeks because he's the employee. So we could do a payroll, employee report. We're gonna get further into that next time. How to do 7 and 8? Anonymous asking again. 7 is go to income tracker. Income trackers where you see everything they expected to get, and you go down to Ploni Almoni, and you create an invoice for. It's going to bring you up automatically 5 WDs. You take out 1 because you're only doing it for 300. Let me see here. No, not recording it. Oh, actually, I stand corrected. I didn't want to do, when I deleted it, it would actually delete. What you want to do is you want to choose the billable and highlight the first 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That way you're still leaving the last day the bill another time. So if you click these 4 for billable, okay, I guess we'll do, this we'll do this next class. We went over time, but we'll discuss this next class. The implications of choosing create invoice and deleting 1 line or doing billable. So that should answer MT as well. Okay, Victor says income is 2810, total income is 3122. Let's see. Again, so ask Victor, is your P&L for the whole year? Is it showing all the income for the year? Because I only have 1 invoice for $300 for Ploni Almoni, and so I'm not counting the 300 twice in this report. And these are my Megillah and Tikkun Shua. So the total income should be 3465. With regards to your other question, so probably you did it. If you have 2810 and your income is only 3122, that means you don't have an invoice. It's probably 339. You never put in the Gabay invoice for the sale for the merchandise. If you had 339.75, that's where you didn't do that Gabay invoice. So that should answer you. So Rachel's asking, how do you edit payroll time and cost sheets? What is the, how do you edit? You go into the employees, enter time, use weekly timesheets, and you enter you open up the appropriate timesheet. The same way you would edit the invoice for a customer or a bill for an employee, you would also edit. You can edit the timesheet. What is the wrong thing here? Sorry about that. I'm on the timesheet, and I go to. You could change. You have to choose the employee first. your blank timesheets. You have to first choose Pinchas Tadris. Once you're there, you could change it. There's a timesheet to half an hour, an hour. Maybe it doesn't work every day an hour. You work one day 75, 3/4 of an hour, one day 20, a quarter of an hour, and the total at the end of the week will be different. So you could just overwrite these numbers. It lets you do that. How many weekly timesheets do you end up making? One for 4 hours of fun. No, I only made either it's one timesheet for 5 or 2 timesheets, one for 1 and one for 4. Like I said, you can either do one timesheet where you have, okay, I said ignore 18 to 21 because this is pre-hire date. So ignore that information, which I did. You're either gonna have one date of the 24th and 4 days of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or you'll do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the following Sunday, which was yesterday, but the total is only 5 hours. How you break it up, you could do it on one invoice, you could do it on 2 separate ones, 2 timesheets. That's from Mr. Katzman, anonymous. Updated PDF of P&L and balance sheet for 2020, the next email. Mr. Hashem will do that. Okay, Judy's asking, how do I do number 4? Number 4 is additional info. 4 is a combination of 2 tabs, tab number 3 and tab number 4. Again, you go to employees. Employees under Pinchas Tadris, you click edit. And on the edit, you go to the 3rd tab, which is additional payroll, payroll info. Payroll frequency is bi-weekly. And you make an item which is at a cost of $40. Right, I believe it says that my WD hourly had 0. I'm not sure why they said that. I see here $40. But anyway, you could create a new item. That's basically how you create PRH. Just type in PRH tab, and it's going to say set up, and you add it to payroll expenses. It's going to tell you. It's going to walk you. It will walk you through 4 questions. It's going to ask you: is this is it hourly, annual, commission, or bonus? It's going to ask you if it's regular pay or overtime pay or. Actually, no, okay, hourly. It's asking hourly or salary or annual. That was the first one. The second one is it regular, overtime, commission, or bonus. Then it asks you which account is associated with. It's obviously payroll expenses. And asks you what the name is. It's whatever name you gave it. That's pretty much for it. I'll just take an example here. If you take a new item, hourly, annual, commission, bonus. Yeah, that was right. Regular, overtime, sick, and vacation. That's 2. Third question is, what's the name? You give it a name. In this case, it could be PRH, or they call it straight time as opposed to overtime. It's really immaterial. And then the last question is the account associated with his payroll expenses. Now, that was for Judy. Chana's asking, since I have to activate my QB account, so how do I save the We Do All file? Well, every transaction you do in QuickBooks, it saves it automatically. That's why you've been hearing those beeps every time you create an invoice or you do a bank deposit. Once you exit the We Do All file, it's going to ask you to create a password, or probably next time you open it up. If it didn't ask, if you never restarted your computer, you never close the file, and you have to give it a password. That's basically, but the saving is just close the file and ask you if you want to save, and you say yes. But it should be, every entry transaction should have been saved already. Okay. So here, Marvin's asking, how do you add 30 TLS to opening balance? If you already made some sales, you cannot, or purchases, you cannot change in this place the opening balance. There is another way how to do it, but it's going to mess up your average cost. there's a way to make an adjustment to inventory. So basically, you're going to have to make a new adjustment of 30 TLS to inventory, but it's not going to have a proper expense for it. So you might be able to track inventory with a different price. Let's leave that for now, adding 30 TLS. But you could do some Q&A, or we could do it in another class. How to adjust inventory that wasn't properly entered. Income tracker says pending. This is Morty's asking. See, income tracker pending. So as you see here, the 375 in this case, I'm going to delete this for now. But you'll see that there's unpaid, which means you billed, and there's paid, which is billed. And unpaid is open, and there's overdue. Unbilled, so it's money which we're counting on income, but it's not billed yet, therefore we don't count it on income. Your question is pending. Where do you see pending? I'm looking for a pending line. I don't see it right now. No. Whoever has an open balance of 75, that's correct. It's supposed to be because he was supposed to pay. We earned 375. We billed him for 300. So this should be 300 on the top line and 75 on the bottom line. If that's what you have, let me know. That's for Fatachav. Okay, so this is for Victor. If you did the invoice, you stand Q&A, we'll find that maybe the dates are different because that's the only plug number that works. That's changing the difference between your P&L and my P&L. Does QuickBooks still automatically charge you 40 for your employee? That's Stephen. It should. That's the idea. That's why we check the box to transfer the paychecks to make the paychecks based on the data, the timesheets. And that's why in the timesheet we had to actually enter in. That's how Pinchas earns his money. Let's go back again. Not everyone works with timesheets, but this is, people expect they show up to work and every 2 weeks to get their money without showing anything for it. In this way, it's actually an organized fashion. You earn your money not by just the coffee that you drink in the office, but by the hours you can bill. If you can bill the hours that we can bill on your work, that's the money that you earn. So in this case, we had, again, we had employees, and it says here that his payroll info is his time data. It's not his showing up, his time data. What is his time data? His time data is what he puts in the timesheet and bills out. Employees, enter time, use the timesheet. So if he shows up in the office for 40 hours, but he could only demonstrate that we could bill for 35 hours, he's only getting paid for 35 hours. This is internal controls. We're controlling the, a waste and abuse of time, which is expensive. And that's why we have a line. If this customer, Polemoni, we could bill out the WD, then Pinchas gets his paycheck of PRH times those hours. That's for Stephen. An income tracker. What are the entries I should have for Polemoni? So you should have, if you made the invoice properly, you should have $300 on the top as an invoice, 75 on the bottom as unbilled, but we're going to review that next time. Anonymous, how do I do step 3? By adding 30 TLS to opening balance. You cannot do step 3. You could do step 3 if you never did anything in inventory yet. If you did activities with TLS, then you cannot add that. And okay, how do you merge both timesheets from? We're gonna figure out how to do a report for timesheet next time. I think we covered the questions that I see over here. We're gonna open up the floor for the Q&A. Those participants that have questions. I don't know if Rachel's still here. She was from last time. If she has a question, what is here? Hello?
Hello, you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you.
Hi. Okay, I figured out last time's stuff, but I had to, I wrote it in the question. I had entered that I bought 100 Mealis, and then I was keeping up with what you were doing, so I sold the 151, and then I entered the next purchase. That's why it wasn't going to the average 75. So what I did was the two the two purchases, I put them a date before.
Okay,
so
that's
complicated.
so you sold 150 when you only had 100.
Yes, and it showed up that I only have it, and I just ignored it. I overwrote it.
Okay, so you oversold.
Because I know I was going to enter it next.
Okay, so that was your negative. You had a negative value, which is really the same thing. You sold out.
No, it's because of FIFO. First in, first out.
I understand this. No, you had 100 that you bought at 50 cents.
So that was the second one that I entered after I sold.
Right. So
right.
It sold you sold 150, so you got rid of all your
my bought by that dollar, right?
So, yeah, I know it's five for life, right?
Yeah, okay.
I mentioned Patsy because generally QuickBooks works with it knows what you have, so you didn't have anything at $1. When you refill the 100 at 50 cents, your cost is 50 cents.
Okay.
So you still have to 52, right?
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Fine.
Good night.
Right. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Mr. Deitch, did you want to ask a question about your sheet, your balance sheet, your P&L?
Yes, please. I just realized my cost of goods sold is off by the 342.75.
Was that cost of goods is later? It's after income. The question is, why is income not off? What do you have in your P&L?
Hold on a second and let me go back to it. Reports, company P&L. It should be for the year until the R, right? Okay. Sales 312.50. Sales income.
Okay, so sales is 312. That's where I have 655. So double click on 655.
Double click on the 312.50, you mean?
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be, in your 312.50.
Okay, so that's where I'm missing it. That's obviously where I'm missing.
So you're missing over here the GABI, the 339.75, and the $3. Now, if you have it, probably you entered it in the wrong date. So go to customers.
Hold on a second. Go to customers. Okay, customers.
Go to GABI.
Customer center. I'm sorry.
Yeah, what's
the GABI?
What's the date for his invoice? 339.
I did that wrong. Try that again. Mr. GABI. I have the 339.75. The date is 5/27.
Yeah, which year?
2020.
It's an invoice?
It says accounts receivable.
No,
If I double click on it, it says invoice. Yeah, invoice for 151 MR McGillis Rus, $2.25, 339.75. I have it. I don't know, do I hit save as save and close?
you never saved it?
I thought I did.
So, okay, save it now. What happens?
I don't know. I just said now save and close.
Yeah.
And now let me go to reports, company, P&L. Oh, why does it always keep going back to June? It always goes to the current date.
But you don't have to create a report every time. You just go to the window menu, and profit and loss, and should have a refresh because you were still in it.
Oh, okay. No, it still comes up the same, 3122.50. Cost of goods sold for somewhere along the line is minus 342.75.
So
Cost of goods sold minus 342. Yeah, that's the 339 for Mr. Gabay, and that's the for five-ish glick the $3. That's the 342.75. How does that?
okay,
How come I'm a minus?
okay, maybe you didn't put your in. Okay, you made your sale probably. The only thing you sold is the McGillis Rus. We sold 2 people.
Right.
You didn't connect it to the sales account. You connected it to the cost of goods, so it became a negative cost of goods. So your gross profit will be the same probably. Your gross profit is 3281.25.
Hold on a second. I have to go. What did you say? Go to window. I'm sorry. Go to window and
No.
profit loss.
If you're still in the
Yeah, go to window profit loss. Which one are you looking for? I'm sorry.
your gross profit.
Gross profit 3281.25.
Correct. So instead of having an income, you have a negative cost of goods. So what you have to do is you have to go to your lists, item list, and go into the 2 items, your MR, your TLS. So that's why this is what you understand the cost. Everything is different. Yeah, the MR could be an asset account, but the COGS account is where you get the expense, but then there's the income account. So there's 3 different accounts you're dealing with.
So I have COGS account, cost of goods sold, (MR).
Okay, but your income account is probably cost of goods.
It is cost of goods sold.
But it has to be sales because you're earning the money on sales. Your expenses in the cost.
So sales or sales income?
Sales. I use that just to differentiate between merchandise as sales and sales income as a service. But
okay, so I changed an account. Would you like
actually now I see I should say the brilliance of it. Next time I'll call it merchandise and service. But I can isolate problems when someone tells me their number, where's the number wrong in the service or the merchandise? If it's all income, it will take me harder to figure out. But when you tell me the number from one is right, the other one's wrong, I already know your issues with merchandise.
Okay, and here we go. I hit the window again, and all of a sudden it came back. Total income is now $34.65.
Oh yeah, because it automatically took his invoice and the $3 from look. Yes,
right, and cost of goods sold is a nothing now. Is an empty.
No, it shouldn't be empty. It should be $70, $140.
Oh yeah, I have the 114. I have the MR and the TLS, but I'm saying I don't have that negative 142.
Beautiful.
342. Okay.
Mamish.
It's math is simple. It's straightforward. Assuming obviously you're doing the ledger, whatever it is, you're putting the things in the right.
If you put it in the right place, then just add it up. That's so it does.
Exactly. That's why the math frustrates me when people when my bookkeeper used to say before, well, it's all $42. It's not all 42 cents. Either it is or it isn't.
You'll see in a class or 2 that sometimes it could look like it's $2-3 off. It could be $100,000 off. Because you can have, a bunch of credits and debits balancing out the other end. The total only shows $2, but it was totally wrong. But that's for future class.
Well,
Okay.
I'm sitting here looking at the numbers and I'm banging my head because I thought I entered it correctly.
Baruch Hashem, it's correct, and we can move on.
Okay, we caught it. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Ben-Cian has a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I have something wrong with my McGillis inventory.
Okay.
I have 48 left in my inventory,
Mhm.
but for some reason, by me, the on my profit and loss, I must have put something in wrong. It showed me the cost of goods for MR is 126, whereby everybody's showing 114.
Okay, it's $12 difference. So maybe.
Right. And I can't find where I fixed
Yeah,
that.
no, the answer is that your cost of goods is 126, and you only have 24 left. So right? So you probably
Right.
didn't.
No, when I go to my item list, I have 48.
You have 48 items, but what's the value of each item? What's the average cost?
So 1 second, I have that open. I have 48. Average cost is 50 cents.
50 cents. It's supposed to be 75 cents. So that quarter is the difference. The 48 quarters is $12.
All right.
So it's possibly like the other person said before that they sold 152 before they got.
So when I go to when I double click by the P&L and I double click on the cost of goods, so it shows me it has 3 items. I have an invoice, I have a sales receipt, and an item receipt.
So, 1 second. If you double click on the MR,
Yeah.
but you have an invoice for 113.25, and have a sales
So
receipt.
here I have an item receipt from the cost for
75 cents. You
credit
sold
of
one.
26.
One guy costed 75 cents, and one person costed 113.25. So you got 114. What numbers do you have?
I have here 151 and 1. 26.
Again?
I have my first invoice. Yeah, for Gabbai.
All right, I just got to put out there. I'm gonna have to go in 10 minutes because there's a curfew in New York City from 11 to 5 a.m. So I got to make sure I get off the streets before 11.
Okay. So I'm trying not to keep you up.
No, that's fine. That's fine. No. I'm just. I want to see what I can do here.
So, where you are, exactly where you are.
You double clicked on your on 120. What was by you 126? I moved to 114. And
so by me, I have like this. I have 3 items, not 2 like you have. And by me, Gabbai is 151.
So go into his invoice. Double click his invoice. What's his price?
225 for 151.
151 times 225. Yeah, but
339.75.
That's the bill. But
right.
if your cost is what was his cost of goods?
Well, I have one order that I did for 50 cents and one order that I did for $1.
No, that's the order that you purchased, what you sold. So here it's showing you when you sold to Mr. Gabbai a bill for $339.
So by me, it's showing 151.
It cost 151 is the pieces that you sold. You sold 151 pieces.
No, it's showing me also where it's showing by you 113.25 at the debit. Yeah. It's showing by me 151.
1 second. Double click his invoice. Let's go through his invoice. Maybe you have quantity. How much? Oh, so okay. So the answer is that you sold it to him before you got the next thing. You have to move back your invoice. You have to how do you say move your invoice.
I should change the date on the item receipt.
Change the date on the item receipt to be before this invoice.
It's on the same day.
Because if your cost goes 151, means when you sold it to him, it costed you $1, and then you only had 100, so you ignored the error that you can oversell.
Okay, so 1 second. Now I got it all straight. Okay.
Huh?
Yeah, I moved it back to the 25th instead of the 27th, and now it took me back. It refreshed, and it showed me 113.25 and 0.75, and it's 114.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Okay, good. Let's see what else we have over here. Okay, I think the last person said before, the last question was Judy, if she's still here.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay, going back to my item 4, I'm sorry, but on the question sheet, I have add new payroll items. I have wages, hourly wages. It says hit next. I hit next. It goes to regular pay.
Correct.
Okay, hit next. And I have, it says name using paychecks and pay reports, PRH,
Right.
correct?
Yeah, and next.
Okay, then it says enter the account for tracking this expense.
So
Payroll expenses.
payroll expenses, that's the default, yeah. Because that's what you're using it. It is for payroll. That's what it is.
So do I enter that or just use
It's
that?
there, use what they give you. Use the payroll expense.
Okay, I don't change it. And then I hit finish.
Yeah.
That's, okay, but now my screen before that, where it says earnings, where I had pay frequently, bi-weekly, the item name is PRH, and I can't put an hourly rate in.
You do. You have to hide. You just click on the right side.
I did, nothing comes up.
No, you type it in.
I don't think it let me type it in.
You should be able to.
Oh, yes, it lets me type in the $40.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the right side stays blank, and I have to use time data to create paychecks. That's a click.
Yeah, I mean, this is. I mean, I'm not sure if I call it advanced method, but this is if you're trying to tie the employee's paycheck to the time that he works, and even more than that, not only to the time that he works, but to the billable time that he works. Whatever he could bill, you could bill out for. That's what he earns. So this is a timesheet where you're putting in the customer. The customer is one person. You're billing out the service item, and the payroll item is what he's earning. So your PRH means that for every WD that you bill out 75, his PRH is $40.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, I hope it was helpful. I hope we got the, how do you say, the handouts out in time.
Okay.
Before the class, and we're going to review the last 3 steps from 7 and on next class.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night, evening.
You too, get home safe.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, anyone else who had a question? I don't see any other raise of hands. So, here we go again. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, okay, so now that it went back, when I go back to profit and loss, I have a net income of 780.25.
Because your depreciation probably is $40 off. You don't have depreciation expense. You don't have.
1 second, I'm supposed to be on this fiscal year today.
Yeah, no, fiscal whole year. No, not the date. Fiscal year, because depreciation comes at the last day of the year.
Oh, okay, it's back to 540.25. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Sorry.
You're welcome. You have to keep track of everything. Yeah, we'll get the hang of it with time. Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Hope it was fun, informative, and we'll meet you again with Hashem on Wednesday. Stop share.